Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Many talk, few have to act. And one of them is the governor of Connecticut. Ned Lamont joins us right now in our studios this morning. You're wounded. For those of you on radio, he's got the sling going in that. You're on a trade mission to India. How is President Trump helping Connecticut with your trade relations with India?
India was nervous as heck about President Trump. That said, we went to Eastern India, which is by far the most innovative and entrepreneurial part. We did a trade mission there, met with 40 or 50 companies, some of which are thinking about getting a foothold in the United States. I had to spell Connecticut for them, but now they know.
Well, you have to spell Connecticut for me as well. Governor Lamont, Blumenthal out as well on this yesterday. You take electricity from Canada. If Doug Ford of Ontario or Quebec Hydro, if they pull the plug, what's it mean for Bridgeport?
We have some very high electric prices throughout New England, including Connecticut, and we bring down a lot of hydro from Canada. So you put 10% on there, that would add about $75 million. You put 20% on there, that'd be $150 million in additional fees paid for by our ratepayers. Not a great idea.
So, Governor, as you've probably seen here in the financial markets, which Tom and I deal with every day, a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace as it relates to economic policy of this new administration. We're seeing that in lower stock prices and weaker dollar. How do you see it from Connecticut? How did you and your constituency look at this current environment?
I come out of the business world. The business world hates uncertainty. Yep. You know, when I took over Connecticut, we were going from boom to bust, a bust, and raising taxes. And we've had 6 straight balanced budgets trying to give people a little certainty. Our unemployment rate is way down and job growth is up. But it's just the opposite in Washington, D.C. right now. All that uncertainty, starting with tariffs, looking at deficits. A lot of businesses said, I think I'm going to hold off right now before I make that investment. That's not good. So in Connecticut, what are the chief issues that you guys are dealing with from an economic perspective these days? Look, we're looking at our 7th and 8th balanced budget, unless they cut Medicaid by $1 billion. You cut Medicaid by $1 billion, our budget is turned upside down, and that's true of 49 other states. What are you hearing from the federal government about some of those big ticket items? I don't think they know right now. I was down there. I met with folks. The secretaries had just come into office. They're coming up with their modeling, but everything runs through the White House.
For those of you across the nation in your commute today, a Democrat, the governor of Connecticut is with us, Ned Lamont, as he tiptoes through all this different policy changes we're seeing. I'm going to cut to the chase. You got a vote of confidence from the people. You got 49% of the vote and won in 2018. I'm going to call it barely. You improved dramatically in 2022 with 57% of the vote. What do you say, really the polarity of the nation on right and left, but what do you say to the Democratic Party as they address from a left liberal point the reality of a centrist Lamont and others as well? A centrist Lamont probably is going to disagree with the Trump administration on a majority of things, but start with areas where we can find some agreement, we can work together. For me, that starts with energy, the high price of electricity. You know, the possibility that we could bring in natural gas or expand nuclear in our region would be transformative. A place where I've been meeting with the secretaries down in Washington, something we can get done together. Right. Well, let me we're at a piece of chalk in our hand at Harvard years ago. Ned Lamont, did the Republicans win the election? Did Trump win, or did the Democrats lose the election because they were too far left? I think Trump won. He won because it was a change election. I look around the world, nobody wanted more of the same. And I think a little bit Kamala got stuck with the Biden legacy, couldn't differentiate herself from there. And believe me, Donald Trump represented change. When you think about the Democratic Party today, a lot of folks are saying, where's the leadership? Because it seems like President Trump and his administration are taking all the oxygen out of the room. Where is the Democratic response? Where's the Democratic policy? Where's the Democratic leadership? Who do you think is the leader? Does the Democratic Party have a leader these days? Well, when we're not in power, you tend to have a lot of different leaders. I'd start with the governors. The governors are not making everything a battle about Donald Trump, but when it comes to Medicaid, we're going to hit hard. We're going to work with Republican governors to say,
uninsuring these poor people is just going to drive a wedge into your hospitals as well, make a difference. Find areas of specific interest and focus on that, rather than just make everything about Trump.
Congestion pricing. We've got a congestion pricing correspondent right here. What is Connecticut?
He's trying to get me in trouble.
Oh, yes. New Jersey has a particular view of congestion pricing against it. How does the folks in Connecticut
I just think you have to pay your bills. And New York City's got to pay their bills. You got a pretty antiquated subway system.
No.
Does anybody have a better idea of how to pay for things? It's so easy to say no. And right now there are a lot of people saying no.
Right.
So I'm a little sympathetic to Kathy Hochul on this.
You represent an advantaged America with the heritage of J.P. Morgan and all that you've done in your life. How does America find the center again? We are, whatever anybody's politics on this show, we can all admit it's a fractured America. How do we find the center back to your family and Estes Kefauver years ago and others? How do we get back to the center, Governor Lamont?
I think we found in Connecticut, Republicans and Democrats find places we can agree. Let's say we did the biggest tax cut ever last year, but it was middle-class people and beyond. It was not for rich people. That was an area where Republicans and Democrats could get together, $500 million tax cut. What we're doing in terms of making sure that we educate people for the jobs that are out there right now, there's a disconnect. I'm finding pretty good balance between Republicans and Democrats there. Look, there's a certain incentive to say no. That's what the nature of the opposition party is. I don't think that's good for Democrats at the national level, and I don't think that's good for Republicans at our state level.
Foreign policy, it's another area that is front and center, for better or worse, for the United States, both in the Middle East and in the Ukraine. Let's just start with Ukraine. There seems to be, I guess, a willingness to find some solution over there. And then it's questioned how you get there. And President Trump has a certain focus here. How would you approach what's happening in Ukraine, trying to find some type of peace there?
Not the way Donald Trump is doing it.
Okay.
Look, he wrote the art of the deal. You go in, you negotiate from a position of strength. Instead, Pete Hegseth just pulled the rug out from under Zelensky, put in place a whole list of concessions, a sense that we're not going to be there to back them. I think that's a terrible way to do it, and our allies around the world are watching how we treat Ukraine. I heard that when I was in India as well. I'm glad they're sitting down. I think they're negotiating. I think that's long overdue, but negotiate from a position of strength.
When I look, Governor Lamont, at Connecticut, and I think there's so many stereotypes out there, and folks, you can come up with your own stereotype. It probably starts with a Hinckley picnic boat or a Graham Banks yacht, but the reality is Connecticut's got an incredible polarity, including 16-17% foreign-born migrants, so, whatever those numbers are. Last time we talked, you said you're managing it. It's not the crisis of New York State and what Mayor Adams is facing, but give us an update on how Connecticut is tackling this polarizing issue.
Connecticut is a diverse state. We represent the diversity of the United States of America. When I go to India, I have to say, look, the stereotype of Connecticut is a bunch of Fairfield County guys in these boats you're talking about is not the reality. Our biggest percentage of international students are Indian-born students, and that we welcome that. I think that's a great strength for our state, and I think it's a great strength for our country, and I think we're getting away from that.
You come from business. You have a business background. President Trump today is addressing the Business Roundtable. What do you think the message should be from Trump to the business leaders and from the business leaders to President Trump?
I think from the business leaders to President Trump, you're seeing the incredible anxiety and uncertainty reflected in a collapsing stock market and rising unemployment rates. Look, I agree with you in terms of wanting to do big things, but you don't have to do them overnight with a chainsaw. Give us a direction of where you want to go, and we can invest accordingly. I hope the president listens to that.
I'm fascinated with a Supreme Court decision the other day with Amy Coney Barrett going over. There seems to be a primal scream of the judiciary solving legislative problems. You're part of that as an executive in Connecticut, but also almost like a legislature to Washington is a governor. Has the legislature just given up the ghost in Washington? I mean, does Congress even part of the debate anymore?
I'm sort of glad to see the judiciary standing up to some of the intrusions from the Trump administration. That said, they haven't passed a darn thing down in Congress in the last 2 months.
Exactly. That's how people feel.
Maybe the judiciary is stepping in there, but I think the judiciary right now is the guardrails protecting our democracy.
One of the great themes here, and it's a theme of your life, is we've expanded our federal mandate away from states like Connecticut. I mean, there's a swing back here where we've said enough on entitlements. When you see the policy from your advisors, we're going to pull back from agriculture. We're going to pull back from Congress. We're going to pull back FAA and all the rest of it, the DOGE stuff and all the rest. It's a primal scream of a smaller Washington. Is that feasible?
Right now it's popular because it sounds like DOGE is getting rid of a bunch of bureaucrats who are, just leaning on their shovels. But every day in our state level, you're seeing how it's hitting people, starting with health care. I think that pushback's going to get louder and louder.
Ned Lamont with us, the governor of Connecticut. We continue our conversation. We welcome all of you. And today, Governor Lamont's people came in. They said, Tom, please do data checks here. We understand the market's blowing up. Futures up 25, now -3. Again, the VIX comes out over 28. That's a key statistic, 28.05 on the VIX. Yields were lower. They're now higher. There's some real correlated churn to the tape right now. Oil, 66.87 a barrel. The dollar weaker this morning. Yen churning, I'm going to call it. The euro well over a 109, showing some of the currency dynamics. Paul, with the governor of Connecticut.
Governor, you and the state of Connecticut, as you mentioned, have been able to balance your budget. We're coming up to some budget discussions down in Washington, D.C. What is your advice to folks in Congress about these upcoming negotiations and trying to balance the budget and trying to push that part of the policy through?
Governors are so frustrated with Washington. We all have to balance our budget. Down in Washington, it's an afterthought. I understand that deficits are not politically that charged an issue, but you got to do the right thing. You don't have to solve it overnight, but you got to directionally start showing that you're getting your budget under control. I don't see that happening in Washington.
Are you surprised there's not more political pressure to do that? Because I think the message I've taken is that unless people force Washington to do that, either to lower expenses, raise revenue, whatever they have to do, unless there's political pressure, there's really no incentive to do anything.
Look, here at Bloomberg, we care about that deeply. We know if you don't have an honestly balanced budget, bad things happen in the future. I've paid down our debt by over $10 billion. People don't care that much. They have real needs every day. How come you're not taking care of that?
So how do you think about that? I mean, is this how do you think, if you were to balance the U.S. budget, where would you go? Expenses, revenue, both? How would you think about it?
I don't think I'd have the biggest tax cut in history for the wealthiest folks. I think that sends a wrong signal, takes us in the wrong direction. I think I would be going after efficiency, not the way DOGE is doing, but in a serious way. And you can't disregard entitlements.
I got 2 questions left. They're both really, really important. And one with immense respect to your family, the heritage of the Lamont family on all of Wall Street. Is this a new Gilded Age? Have we skewed things so far over to billionaire mania that we're really reliving? I mean, Trump has this fixation over McKinley and tariffs. Are we reliving McKinley as a society?
I think we are a little bit. I think inflating the money supply and all the deficits have made the rich a lot richer, probably the richest they've been since 1929.
I got one final question. It's incredible. Paul emails in and says, it's just simple. Finally, Big East basketball is back. I mean, I'm looking at UConn St. John's. This could be exciting.
That's going to be a great Big East game. UConn is playing better and better. The men and the women are top flight.
The women are top flight. But in men's basketball, UConn's won 4 in a row. Are they saving it for St. John's here?
Hey, look, we're 2-time national champions.
Yeah.
We know what we're doing.
Okay. John
Great
Tucker,
coach.
would you like to? This is on congestion.
Do you know?
taxing?
No, this is more important. Do you know why they call it the Nutmeg State?
No.
It's based on a scam. The Yankee peddlers used to sell fake nutmeg to unsuspecting travelers in Connecticut. Do I have that right?
I rephrase that a little bit. We're a great trading state. We take advantage of our advantages.
Final question. I noticed finally after 400 years, we get new Amtrak trains. Everybody blames Connecticut for the worst wires. We fixed it, forget about the tunnels. We fixed it New York to Washington. Give us an update on your unspeakable relationship with Amtrak to give us better, cheaper train service.
I will tell you, we're going to be able to speed up Amtrak dramatically over the next 5 years. We got significant resources from the Biden administration. We are a choke point. We got a lot of little towns, a lot of stops along the way, a lot of twists and turns around Mrs. O'Gillicuddy's home. Right. We're going to speed that up.
Is the president going to cut your submarine effort?
I don't think so. It's the strategic piece of our triad that's still undecipherable.
Folks, for those that don't know it, you take the train up and you're there, and there's like a submarine over in a window. Explain to people what's going on. It's your submarine base in Connecticut. It's top secret. They don't even know if they leave or go because they leave underwater. But explain the commitment of Connecticut to our United States Navy.
Yeah, Electric Boat, part of General Dynamics, makes most of our submarines here and down in Virginia. It's the last piece of our triad that is still undetectable, so it's really important in terms of our strategic deterrence. If you think the Soviets are coming in from the North Sea, they're going to come right by New England. It's very important what we got there in the Groton, New London area.
Awesome. Governor, thank you for joining Bloomberg today. Greatly appreciate it. Mr. Lamont of the state of Connecticut.